Listen! You should...
Hi! So for this video, tuturuan ko kayo kung paano mag-sketch ng graphs ng ilang functions using what we learned about limits from our previous discussions. So yung goal natin today ay makapag-sketch ng graph ng rational functions involving asymptotes. So ano ba yung asymptotes? Well, an asymptote is a line na kung saan yung graph mo ay papalapit na papalapit doon but never actually reaches that line. No? It never intersects but it gets closer and closer to your asymptote. So before we do that, before we were able to sketch our graphs, we may need to discuss three concepts first. Test for symmetry, vertical asymptotes, and horizontal asymptotes. Unahin na natin yung test for symmetry, no? Okay. So a function f of x is called an even function if f of negative x equals f of x, and an odd function if f of negative x equals negative f of x. So ibig sabihin, even function siya, no? Kapag lahat ng x ay ni-replace ko ng negative x, I will go back, no? I will return, I will still get the original function. Whereas odd function naman siya kapag if I replace all x's in the function with negative x, I will instead get the negative of your original function. So bakit siya importante in graphing? Well, it happens that when a function is an even function, siya po ay symmetric sa y-axis, and an odd function is symmetric with respect to your origin. So ano yung sabihin niyan? Well, an even function looks something like this, no? Siya ay symmetric sa y-axis, ibig sabihin po, pag ni-reflect mo siya with respect to the y-axis, you will still get the same graph, no? Kumbaga kung ano yung itsura niya dito sa isang side ng y-axis, no? Dito sa right side, no? Mirror image niya yung itsura ng graph dito sa kabilang side. Kapag naman odd function, symmetric with respect to your origin, ibig sabihin siya ay parang mirror image diagonally. Sabihin, pag flip ko siya diagonally, I will still get the same looking graph. Okay? Good. So let's have some examples. So sabi sa atin, let's identify if these functions are symmetric with respect to the y-axis, the origin, or neither. So yung pagiging even or pagiging odd, they are not dichotomous. Pwede mangyari na hindi ka even, hindi ka rin odd function. Neither of the two. So we will identify if these three are odd, even, or neither. So to do that well, alam naman natin yung kailangan gawin, we just compute for f negative x. We just replace all x's with negative x, and let's see if we get the same function, the negative of the original, or maybe a function na walang kinalaman dun sa original function. Game. Ito yung first one. So let's look for f of negative x. Let's replace all x's with negative x. I get something like this. But negative x squared, negative x quantity squared is x squared pa rin. So I still get this function, and this is your original function, f of x. So ganun lang po kasimple, even function siya, and moreover, symmetric with respect to your y-axis. Okay? Good. Now, let's try this one instead. Again, f of negative x. Replace all x's with negative x. I get this. Negative x to the fourth is still x to the fourth, no? Pero itong negative x quantity cube, it will become negative x cube. And this minus negative x will become plus x. So ano masasabi mo? Numerator is still the same from the original, but your denominator is the negative of the original. Oops. Something like that. Also, ano yan? Eh di, siya yung negative ng original because you just multiplied negative 1 to your denominator. So f of negative x turns out to be equal to negative f of x. Therefore, this is an odd function and moreover, symmetric with respect to your origin. Okay? Now this third one. Okay, so let's replace all x's with negative x. Negative x quantity squared is x squared. So itong dalawa, x squared pa din. But this minus negative x becomes plus x. So I get this one. How is this related to your Original, well, it's definitely not the same with the original, so hindi siya even. Hindi rin siya negative, no? Kasi ito lang x yung nag-iba eh. Kung negative siya nung original, sana nagbago yung sign nung lahat sa taas or lahat sa baba. Okay? But ito lang yung x na nag-iba. So, this function is neither odd nor even and not symmetric with respect to your y-axis nor the origin. So, ganun lang po kasimple yung test for symmetry. Okay? Good. Now, let's move on to your second component in graphing functions, which is about vertical asymptotes. So kapag meron tayong line na x equals a, so that's a vertical line, no, passing through a, then siya po ay isang vertical asymptote of x if either limit as x approaches a from the right ay plus infinity, limit as x approaches a from the right ay minus infinity, x approaches a from the left ay plus infinity, or x approaches a from the left ay minus infinity. In short, kapag kahit isa lang, no, sa apat na yan, sabihin kahit isang one-hand limit lang, either right-hand or left-hand limit as x approaches a, ang mag-equal sa infinity, whether that be positive or minus infinity, then x equals a is a vertical asymptote. Okay? So in the case of rational functions, how do we identify what are your vertical asymptotes? Alangan namang subukan mo lahat ng real number a, no? Ang dami-dami nun, hindi pwede yun. Well, we just look at the real numbers where the denominator of your rational function is 0. Sila lang yung suspects mo for being vertical asymptotes. But hindi ka sure. They could still be not vertical asymptotes, so you still have to check these limits. Okay? Okay, para mag-gets natin, examples tayo. Let's look for the vertical asymptotes of these rational functions. Itong una, again, sabi natin, ano yung mga possible vertical asymptotes? Well, those that make your denominator 0, well, how do we know that? It's best to factor first. Yung taas becomes x minus 2, x plus 2, pero mas importante yung sa baba. This becomes x plus 3 times x minus 1. So alam na natin, ano yung mga magpapazero sa denominator? Well, negative 3 and 1. So those are your possible vertical asymptotes. Now we check the limits as x approaches minus 3 from the left or from the right, and limit as x approaches 1 from the left and from the right. If one of those becomes an infinity, then they become vertical asymptotes. Game. Limit as x approaches minus 3 from the left ng g of x. Gamitin na natin tong factored form. Kaya ako rin finactor yung task, no? Mas madaling kunin yung limit. If I plug in negative 3 to each one of these terms, ito pong x minus 2 magiging negative 5. Ito pong x plus 2 magiging negative 1 if I plug in negative 3. Ito magiging 0. In particular, I want either 0 minus or 0 plus, no? But this is, if you try to plug in values less than negative 3, you'll get negative numbers. Diba? Pag negative 4, negative 1 yan. So this is 0 minus. And this one, if I plug it here, I get negative 4. Okay? So what do I get? Negative 5 times negative 1, positive 5 sa taas. Meron akong 0 minus, tapos negative 4. I get positive infinity. Okay? So okay na. X equals negative 3 is automatically a vertical asymptote. Okay? Because one of the one-side limit becomes infinity. However, although hindi naman na kailangan in this example, I still want to compute, no, the limit from the right. Because later, when we sketch functions, importante po lahat ng one-hand limit, no? From the left and from the right. So, para ma-practice tayo, gawin ko na rin. Although, if you just want to know kung VA siya, then ito ay sapat na po, no? Pero gawin natin to. Well, it's just the same. Ipa-plugin ko pa rin naman si negative 3 sa lahat. Well, this is plus, sorry. Oh my God. This is plus. Okay. So, ipa-plugin ko pa rin siya sa lahat, except ito magiging 0 plus na siya. Ito lang yung magbabago because now I'm getting values, no, of x from the right of negative 3, which will make this positive. Okay, so positive 5 sa taas, may negative 4 ako dito, tsaka 0 plus. This is negative infinity. Okay? Good. Now, let's check if 1 is a vertical asymptote. Let's get the limit. Wait. Oops. Burahin ko lang yung... mamaya na lang. Okay. Game. So, let's try this one. If I plug in 1, I'm getting the limit as x approaches 1 from the left, no? If I plug in 1, I get negative 1 here. Dito, I get 3. Sa x plus 3, I get 4. If I plug in 1 here, I get 0. But it's from the left, I get 0 minus. So, negative 3 sa taas, ito positive 4 times 0 minus, I get positive infinity. So, x equals 1 is a vertical asymptote because one of its one-hand limit goes to infinity. But again, I still want to compute yung limit from the right, although hindi naman na kailangan in this given, gawin pa rin natin. So if I compute this limit, if I plug in 1, everything remains the same except this part nagiging 0 plus lang po siya. Kasi 1 from the right na siya. So I get negative, positive, positive, positive. I get negative here. Okay? So vertical asymptotes are x equals negative 3 and x equals 1. Okay. So far, so good. Now let's try a different given. Well, this time, we have this, and I want to know your suspects for vertical asymptotes, meaning the values of x that will make your denominator 0. But if I factor this, yung taas magiging x plus 1 times x plus 5, yung baba magiging x plus 1 times x minus 1. Okay? So what makes your denominator 0? I have negative 1 and 1. Let's check. Negative 1 muna tayo. Limit as x approaches negative 1 from the left of this function of your given. What will happen if I have an x plus 1 here and an x plus 1 here? So, pag dito pinasok ko siya, magiging 0. Ito magiging 0. This is 0 over 0. But kitang-kita naman that there's something you can cancel, which is x plus 1. So, I will be left with this part instead. And this time, when I plug in negative 1, I get negative 2. So, walang infinity. Yung from the right kaya, i-check natin, baka mag-infinity. Well, no, because it's just the same. Regardless kung from the left or kung from the right, it will still become 0 over 0 if you plug in negative 1. Pareho yung magka-cancel, pareho yung matitira, pareho yung limit. Okay? So, even though negative 1 makes your denominator 0, it's not a vertical asymptote. Okay. Now let's check for x equals 1. If I try to plug in 1, limit from the left muna kunin ko, no? If I try to plug in 1, I get 2 dito sa x plus 1. Sa x plus 5, I get 6 dito sa x plus 1, 2. Dito ay 0 minus. Okay. So I have plus, 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 minus. Here, I get negative infinity. X equals 1 is indeed a vertical asymptote. Pero check na rin natin. Again, kailangan natin mamaya lahat ng side limits. So, one side limit. So, might as well practice, no? So, if I do that, if I plug in 1, everything remains the same. Except sa x minus 1, dun lang yung magbabago. It will become 0 plus. And this time, it becomes positive infinity. My vertical asymptote is only x equals 1. Okay, good. Last, I have this. So, what makes your denominator 0? There's only one number that does that. That's negative 2 here. Pero finactor ko na rin siya, no? Yung taas, I get x plus 1 and times x plus 2. Yung factoring nito. Maybe may idea na kayo kung ano mangyayari dito. Let's see. I have one suspect for VA. This makes your denominator 0 eh. If I get the limit, I have an x plus 2 here, I have an x plus 2 here. I get 0 over 0, but I can cancel that. I will be left with the limit of x plus 1 as x approaches minus 2 from the left. I can just simply plug in minus 2, I'll get negative 1. May pinagkaiba ba pag limit from the right? Wala. Ganun lang din. 0 over 0 pa din yan. Magka-cancel lang si x plus 2, x plus 1 pa din, negative 1. But that's my only suspect and hindi pa siya naging VA. Therefore, this function has no vertical asymptotes. Okay? So that's how you compute the vertical asymptotes of your function. Lastly, before we're able to finally sketch, we need to understand the concept of horizontal asymptotes. This time, a horizontal line y equals b. Yan po ay isang horizontal line na dumadaan sa y equals b. No, siya ay isang horizontal asymptote if either the limit as x approaches infinity ay b or the limit as x approaches minus infinity ay b. Kahit isa lang dyan magkatotoo, y equals b is a horizontal asymptote. Sa VA, no, x approaches a equals infinity. Dito, x approaches infinity equals b. Okay? Huwag malilito ha. Okay, good. So simple lang, ito wala kang suspect. Just compute for these limits, no? Kung ano yung lalabas ng mga numbers, yun yung horizontal asymptotes. Okay? This is easier compared to VA and much straightforward. Game, so let's compute the horizontal asymptotes of these three functions. Unahin natin yung una. Again, kailangan natin i-compute limit as x approaches plus infinity and minus infinity. Limit as x approaches plus infinity of this function, ito lang siya. Do you remember our limits at infinity? Again, you can divide by the highest power in your denominator, in this case x squared, and do all of that process. Or you could remember one of our shortcuts, which if you notice, yung taas at yung baba ay pareho lang po ng power, parehong degree 2, no? So I could just look to get the limit as x approaches plus infinity. I could just look at the quotient of your leading coefficients. So I can just directly compute it to be 4 over 8 or 1/2. Kung gusto nyo gawin yung old-fashioned way of dividing x squared, that's fine. Yung limit as x approaches minus infinity, ganun din naman, no? Hindi naman, ganun pa din, 1/2 pa din siya. No, ito pa rin tignan mo dyan eh. Okay? So therefore, my horizontal asymptote is y equals 1/2. Okay? Good. Next, number 2. What are the HAs of this function? Well, first, I want to compute the limit as x approaches plus infinity. What can you notice is that yung degree ng taas ay mas mababa sa degree sa denominator. Which means, ano nga ulit yun? This is sum infinity, no? And indeed, if I do that, highest power sa baba ay x. So, I will divide up and below by x. So, yung x squared naging x, ito naging 9 over x, ito naging 1, ito naging 5 over x. 9 over x, 5 over x becomes 0. Yung x, pag pinasakan ko ng infinity, magiging plus infinity. So I will be left with this, no? So this becomes plus infinity. Okay? And yung from the left, ganun pa din. I-divide ko pa rin sa taas tsaka sa baba ay x. Ganito pa rin yan. Pinagkaiba lang, itong part na may x, naging minus infinity lang. Tama? So ito po ay minus infinity. So ano masasabi mo? You've computed already the limit as x approaches plus in minus infinity. I didn't get any real number as my answer. So this has no horizontal asymptotes. Okay? And finally, this given Shortcutin na natin. Limit as x approaches either plus infinity or minus infinity man yan, the degree of your denominator is lower than your numerator. So kapag ganon, easy, 0. Diba? So I have only one horizontal asymptote, which is y equals 0, or your x-axis. Okay? Good. Now,